Alright boys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Gage. I'm a radiologist by day, but about 3 months ago I decided to start a podcast with my friend Dennis. It's called Rad Talk. Here you can see our homepage for our YouTube with the handle and everything. Usually we post radiology based content because he's a travel sonographer, ultrasound tech, so that's what we're most comfortable with. So most of our content is related to that, but we would like to expand. We talk about some general life things on our podcast, which you can see some of the clips below. I post the long form clips or the long form videos of our podcast here. We have all the links for our social medias in the description. But today I wanted to try something a little different. This will be our first non kind of radiology related video, I guess, but wanted to try a new series called A Radiologist Reacts. And what we're going to do for the first video today is react to a song that has kind of taken over the nation. I'm a little late on this actually, but if you haven't heard of Oliver Anthony, this would be a good video to kind of get an introduction into him. But he put out a song called Richmond, north of Richmond, and today what we're going to do is just go through it and kind of break it down, and I'll give you guys my thoughts on the video or on the song itself. So what we'll do, I'll put his link in the description. I'm also using Radio West Virginia to listen to the actual video because I couldn't find it on his page. So I'll put their link in the description, and then we'll go ahead and just dive right into this. So the first thing I noticed when I opened this video was there are 35.5 million views on this video alone. I don't know if that's just for this channel or if that's somehow compiled all of the views that he has on this video. But if it's just for this channel, then that number is much higher if you consider Twitter and all the other outlets. Another interesting thing was that it has almost 136,000 comments, which is just crazy. If you're not familiar with Oliver Anthony, this page gives you a little blurb down here, and then you can go to his social medias and stuff. And I think he's kind of started to open up a little bit and give you insight onto who he is and everything like that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this song here. Let me make it full screen. All right.
I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay.
So not even 10 seconds into the song, and he hits you with maybe one of the most memorable parts of the whole song, which is that he's essentially just working for minimum wage, and he's essentially admitting it's not worth it. So I think this is a line that resonates with the vast majority of Americans, and then actually not just Americans. I mentioned there were 136,000 comments. If you scroll down, the very first one is from a guy who's from India who says, the situation's becoming very similar. So, and I saw some other ones from like Poland and other parts of Europe and everything. So this song is not just resonating with people here in America, it's also going international. But I think most people, this is how we feel, on a day-to-day basis. We work the job, we go to work, we do the job. It's really not fucking worth it, and the money sucks. So I think he has an interesting hook already. He's hooked, the vast majority of people that are going to listen to the song because they can relate to that one specific sentence.
So I can sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away. It's a damn shame.
And then he goes on to say that, he's just wasting his life away. You just go to work, you come home, either you're too fucking tired or you got a whole bunch of other bullshit that you have to deal with. So you don't really get to enjoy anything. And then he says to kind of relax, he indulges in some alcohol. I don't know what his choice was, but I think he's come out and said that he had an issue with alcohol and mentally he wasn't in a good spot, and that's kind of what inspired this song. But I think that's another aspect that most Americans can relate to. He's from, I think, Virginia, rural Virginia. I grew up in rural Illinois, so I'm sure our upbringings were at least somewhat similar. But I had, you watch your parents go to these shitty ass jobs. My dad owned a small business, but it didn't make very much money. So he kind of just did his best to provide, for us. My mom had a shitty desk job that she didn't really enjoy, but they didn't make very much money together. So you can kind of watch, as a kid, you can watch your parents go through this stuff. You don't really understand it at the time. And then you just watch your parents come home, and maybe it kind of resonates now that you're that we're older, we can kind of reflect on that time. And it's also, I don't, maybe comforting isn't the right word, but I guess comforting to know that other people in other parts of the country are going through similar things, so you're not alone. So in the first verse alone, he's already hooked majority of Americans because they can relate either themselves to the situation that he's going through or went through, or at one point their parents or some other loved one went through it. So he's got an interesting hook. Even if you don't like myself personally, I don't like country music, so I was a little skeptical of the song. But I mean, when you start with something that resonates so deeply with a whole bunch of people like that, they're going to want to listen to the rest of the song.
What the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is.
So there he kind of goes on to admit that people like you and people like me, he's just writing the song for average people, average Americans like us, and that this is all kind of one big nightmare that he wishes he could wake up from. But unfortunately you can't, and I don't know that we'll wake up anytime soon. So I thought that was another interesting take to open the song here. Let's keep going.
Living in the new world with an whole soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do.
So I thought this was interesting because he's pretty much calling out politicians, right? Richmond, north of Richmond. But so he's pretty much calling out the political elite for kind of don't really relate to the average person, which are people like you and people like me. So he's already saying that the politicians want to have total control, and I think that's very evident in everyday things. And then I think the more interesting part for me is that he pretty much says politicians think we're stupid and we don't know what they're trying to do, which with the advent of social media and everything, everyone has their opinions and all the information is widely available. So I think that's kind of an oversight if politicians truly do think that the average American is too stupid to know catch on to what they're trying to do. I think most of us are aware of what they're trying to do, change things to where they're more in the favor of us, right? Because it's disappointing because we're supposed to, not only do these politicians they don't give a fuck about us, it's even more disheartening because we're the ones that elect these politicians that are supposed to give a fuck about us. So we're electing people that don't give a shit about us in the Capitol, and they make these laws and changes and everything that only benefit them, and then they just shit on us. So I thought this was I think this is the crux of his song, is kind of the political oversight and how it's kind of dog shit and something needs to change.
Your dollar ain't shit and it's taxed to no end, 'cause the rich men know the rich men.
So that this part, the taxes, that's self-explanatory. I mean, they destroy us with taxes. Everything you do is taxed. Income tax, sales tax, property tax, just all these dumb fucking taxes. If you want to play the stock market, that gets taxed. If you want to give money to somebody, that's going to get taxed. If your parents die and they give you land or a house, that's going to get taxed. And then you buy something from somebody, that you get taxed, and then that person gets taxed on the money that you just gave them. So it's crazy to see how much money and what percentage of our income actually goes to taxes in some form or another. That doesn't, I mean, I didn't even mention state. If you live in a state that has state tax, that's another form. So taxes are something that I personally struggle with. I'm a huge fan of how much we as Americans get taxed, and we get taxed, and for what, right? We don't have free healthcare, we don't have free education, we don't have free anything. So if you're going to tax us all of this money, where the fuck is it going, right? Like, I saw a news clip the other day about a guy that mentioned his roads don't get fixed, and if he hits the pothole and his tire pops, it's still his fault to fix. It's still his responsibility to fix it financially, which we're getting taxed to drive on the street. So one, you're not fixing it, so you're not using our tax dollars the way they're supposed to be used, and then two, you fucked up his car because of the streets that you didn't fix, but he still has to fix it. So I'm not a I'm not opposed to being taxed as long as those taxes are going to something that's beneficial for the majority of Americans, which better things we could be doing with the tax money that's just mishandled. So it being taxed is one thing, and then mishandling the tax is a completely other thing, which I think I'm more upset with the latter. You know, the politicians kind of just lining their own pockets. Mine kind of sparks a whole bunch of people thinking about those kind of issues right there. So this was one of the more powerful lines to me in the whole song.
I wish politicians would look out for minors, and not just minors on an island somewhere. Lord, we got...
So this was the one that I was like, man, if this guy disappears, this is the line that's going to do it. So he's from West Virginia or Virginia, where I think mining is very popular. It's a very common way for people to make a living. So I don't know anything about their issues, but I'm assuming, as with a whole bunch of other things, Washington doesn't handle it very well. They're not taken care of like they should be. So he's mentioning that, but then the second half of the line is miners on an island somewhere, obvious reference to Epstein Island. So I thought that's a cool play on words. One, just to throw that out there. Two, that's a very powerful, to me, this was the most powerful line in the song, because he mentions Epstein Island, and this would be the line. This is why he would disappear. But I thought that was a very interesting line.
Folks in the street ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese milking welfare. Well, God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. Young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground, 'cause all this damn country does is keep on kicking them down.
So I think that last line about if you're 5'3" and 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. That was, from what I've seen, the only line in the song where he's gotten a whole bunch of pushback, because people are saying he's attacking people on welfare for being overweight and kind of milking welfare. But this in my mind kind of goes back to what we just talked about taxes, in terms of welfare is probably underfunded in this country, and we pay so much in taxes that welfare shouldn't be underfunded. I guess it should be handled much better than what it is. Again, this is way out of my realm. People smarter than me would handle this stuff, but I just know that there's a way to do it. You take all this money from me and countless other Americans. I know there's a way that welfare can be handled much better. And then he talks about people being on the street with nothing to eat. That's kind of another issue that, homelessness is another issue that taxes, in part at least, should be able to handle. So I think that they're kind of two sides of the same coin, I guess. Flack for that line. I don't think he meant it maliciously. I think it kind of just flowed with the song, and then it was kind of a way to get his point across that welfare is a broken system. Some people abuse it. I mean, if it's a free system, people are going to abuse it no matter what country. America's no different. We're not unique in that category. But I thought that was kind of interesting that line was what he got so much pushback on. And then I can't get out. I don't think fudge rounds are sold in bags. I think they're boxes. So that bugs me that he said bags. But
Man north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just want to have total control. Want to know what you think, want to know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do, 'cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end, 'cause the rich men, north of Richmond.
Hammers home the point about politicians. One, misappropriating funds. They're not really representing us, which is what they're elected to do, which we elect these people, and they're supposed to be in our best interest, but they don't give a fuck about us. They only care about themselves. And then he kind of goes on to mention again, just taxes. You're just getting bent the fuck over with taxes at every level. So
I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay.
Overall, it's a really good song. One, I think that's part of why it caught on so well, is because it's a good song. Two, he's very raw and emotional. What people liked it so much is because you could tell this was coming from a place deep within him. So he's been through these things, he's experienced these things. He knows the majority of Americans have experienced these things. So the message was good. The delivery of the message was good. I don't think he meant for this to do as well as it did. He's in the forest. He's just got his dogs. He's probably camping, doing something, kind of just getting away. So I think that also kind of resonates with Americans. He's not a materialistic person. He's not wealthy. He's not elite. He just is an average dude like the rest of us. So I think that's part of why his song did so well. And then obviously the message of the song is why it did so well. We're at a time now post-COVID where people are even more heightened in terms of their dislike for government, establishment, authority, whatever you want to call it. So I think his personal situation kind of just boiled over. He creates this song and it's a national outrage, but at the same time I think it provided a sense of community for Americans. We're not all obviously creative and vocal and can sing and speak for ourselves like this, so it was nice that he was able to put the majority of Americans' thoughts into words we can kind of rally behind. So I think it was Bud Light offered him like $10 million and he turned it down, which that's huge. I mean, $10 million is just a shitload of money. So for him to turn it down kind of shows you a little bit about who he is. He's open to going through in life. So I don't know. Those are kind of my thoughts. I'd be interested to know what you guys think down in the comments section. Like I said, I'll link his channel. I'll link West Virginia Radio's channel. You can follow him on all his social media. I think his song's on iTunes. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I just wanted to say, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. We just crossed 50 subscribers on YouTube, which is a big milestone for us just starting out. If you go to the description in our YouTube page, you will also have links to our Instagram and TikTok, which is just rad_talk_DG. It will also have links to Apple Podcast and Spotify if you want to listen to our podcast.